What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to a live. This is strictly going to be streamed on YouTube. I'm not going to stream this on Facebook, but I'm gonna just put the announcement out right now on Facebook, let people know that hey, I'm live on YouTube right now. Let's see here. How's everyone doing today? How's everyone doing today? Hope everyone's having a good day. Hope everyone enjoyed their Valentine's Day. I'm not going front. Hope you guys really did enjoy it. I never really knew that there was such a dark side to Day. Yo, I never really knew that. But Valentine's Day was a little creepier than I thought. Even though Saint Valentine, that was a day that everybody came together and enjoyed a feast and all that. I never really knew it was about, a bunch of women getting their ass beat, a bunch of animals getting killed. I did a little in-depth review on it, study, I should say, and I never knew that they would get together at these feasts and literally like beat the shit out of their women, yo. Trip me out. Really did. Really fucking did. But let me just get on here and make sure everything's running smoothly. Nothing's really going too crazy right now. So put the mute button on. Make sure everything's still good. All right, bet. Looks like everything's still streaming pretty well. What I'm going to do now, can I do that here or? Matter of fact, yeah. If you guys want to check out part 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'm going to leave a link to those in the comment section right now before I actually get into this live, closing this out. Thanks for popping in on live. If you want to drop a comment, go ahead and drop a comment if you like. But I do want to try and close this out real quick because they just had a Martin Luther King thing going on here in Allentown, which actually kind of sparked me doing this whole black on black crime thing, right? So pretty much just to recap why I'm doing this whole black on black crime analysis is due to me going to a community event, right? Out here in Allentown, PA. I was at a location called Change on Hamilton. I was invited to go to a poetry session, right? And as I get there, I noticed that a DJ was there. The DJ, I've never really spoke to the DJ, got to really build a good rapport with him or anything like that. But the DJ was there. I'm wondering why is your music playing on like I'm like, it's poetry night. Why wouldn't the DJ be there? But then I realized it was karaoke night instead of poetry night. So the DJ got to make some remarks, trying to call me out, things like that. So I do a little rap in response to saying right then and there. Now, mind you, I didn't use Chat GPT to write this rap or anything like that. I just wrote the rap off the dome or whatever. And as the night progressed on, which about him getting awarded the Martin Luther King Award out here in Allentown for, people out here within the black community and their thing. And mind you, this guy doesn't even look like he's black. He looks like he's either Puerto Rican or he looks like he's white. And I'm sitting here looking at this dude like, bro, you probably just got the award because you look socially acceptable. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat this. But you probably got the award because, for one, yeah, you've been doing the work in the community. That much, I give you golf clap. Get a golf clap for that, right? But at the same time, it's been a practice for years for the Caucasian culture to practice, social acceptability. It's been done throughout the whole entire history for the last 500-600 years, really. And now that I sat here, and had this conversation with him, he said something during this conversation saying that black people were stupid. And I want to try and break down black on black violence, black on black crime, as a way to for the community to understand it. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like, again, like, we didn't really know each other. We didn't really have a good rapport. We didn't really have a good understanding of morals and values and things like that. For one, he seems to see me as a very negative person, but I like to just be real and use discernment. And for someone to sit there and say, "Hey, you're negative," you're probably just thinking I'm negative in your from your perspective and your perception because I don't fall in line with you and how you operate and how you maneuver. And that's just the sad reality about it. You know, a lot of people like to sit here and say, if you're part of separatism, you know, you need to move along. Separatism and segregation are two different things. Separatism is willingly. You willingly separate yourself from people. Segregation is where you're forcibly by law removed from a certain group of people to be stuck with your own group of people. There's a big difference between separatism and segregation. A lot of people need to understand that. But what I'm going to do, matter of fact, I'm going to do this after the live because I'm already taking up a lot of time already. But this is really going to be kind of like, I'm trying to close this out properly because this is going to be like the end of illusion here, right? So let me move my camera back over. This is really going to be like the end of illusion and what happens when we stop playing along, right? So parts 1 through 4 uh, really just dismantle the surface narratives. Now, what I really want to do here is zoom out on all of this because this is not about pretending violence doesn't exist, okay? Violence is real. We all know that violence is real. People are harmed, families get destroyed, communities carry the grief of all the statistics that the statistics can't really hold. And that reality deserves seriousness. It really does. And at the same time, there's a pivot here because the phrase black on black crime is not really something that you deal with that's really a crime category. It's not even a criminological term, criminology term, excuse me, criminology term. It's not even that. It's not even a legal fucking classification at the end of the day. It's literally a rhetorical device. It's a fucking rhetorical device, a framing tool, a political asset, for lack of better terms. And tools are used for outcomes. We all know this. You watch it, the viewer watching this right now, the person that's going to watch this, the replay, you're going to realize that this is just a tool that's going to be used for a certain outcome. And this is literally a rhetorical. What's up, Jocelyn? And or political asset. Oh, shit. Or a political, a framing tool, other things like that, right? So let me put this on Do Not Disturb so I don't lose connection here. So the big reveal is that crime is usually intraracial. Is that a word? Is that the word I'm looking for? Yeah. It's usually intraracial, right? So in other words, that means it really plays a part or really make it. Here is the part. Shoot, I know I'm stuttering. I got so distracted just there. This is the part that really makes headlines, right? So when I say that, it's because most violent crime in America is intraracial. A lot of people were like, well, what's intraracial? That means it happens within the same race group. This is why you have black on black crime. You have white on white crime. You know, white victims are usually harmed by white offenders. Black victims are usually harmed by black offenders. Hispanic victims are usually harmed by Hispanic offenders. And when you tend to think about it even more, the pattern really exists because crime is local. This is something I've said before in my other videos. People tend to live near. That's proximity. They interact with and they have conflict with people that's similar to themselves. And that's what you call, again, proximity. That is geography and proximity, not pathology by far. So when only one group gets labeled this way, this is no longer statistical curiosity by far. That is a narrative selection. And selection reveals the intention. And my idea, my thesis, my hypothesis from this gentleman, pretty much making black on black crime the highlight of his award speech, is your intentions are literally just to degrade black people, to dehumanize black people, and to sit here and say, oh, we're going to do this. This is just how narratives protect systems, if you ask me. Because language, again, the language directs attention. Now, when the public focuses on behavior, they stop examining the design behind the behavior. So what this means is that behavior framing says, what is wrong with these people? Design framing says, what conditions produce this outcome? And obviously those two are completely different questions. They are radically different policy paths. Excuse me, I got a tongue twister there. And if crime is treated as a moral defect, enforcement literally becomes the answer. It literally becomes the answer. If crime is treated as a system's failure, investment becomes the answer. And investment costs different people money. And I believe that's where the incentives enter the chat, right? So again, this goes back to who benefits from all this. So if we remove the emotion and look at the actual structure, that means enforcement heavy systems create what? Large municipal police budgets, right? That means they create federal grant pipelines. They also create prison prison construction contracts, excuse me, reading from my notes here. Surveillance technology markets, court system revenue streams. This is literally what is going to be created, right? So there is an ecosystem around punishment. We all know this. Every person that you see get locked up due to regular incarceration. I'm not talking about mass incarceration when it comes to black people. I'm just talking about incarceration in general. Look at the entire local economics, because they depend on prisons. Now, when you lock someone up, they get paid what? The prison gets paid $6,000-7,000 per day each day that person is locked up. So these private vendors end up supplying the jails. Contractors build the facilities, and then you have the technology companies that sell predictive policing software. Now, in economics, we call this incentive structure. Excuse me. Mind you, I'm not in finance, economics, or anything like that. I'm in marketing. So from marketing standpoint, this is what you call a top, middle, and bottom funnel structure. Once the money flows in a direction, institutions fight to maintain it. So in other words, once the person comes into a prison, the institution is going to then do all this stuff in the middle. So the bottom funnel will now be able to say, hey, now I got you. Now you're not going anywhere, right? And the narratives that justify that flow are protected. So this is not conspiracy talk by far. This is institutional self-preservation. Now, if you flip the lens on this, you find out who pays all this. That means communities with high enforcement saturation, what they experience is higher incarceration rates, employment barriers after release, family instability, reduced generational wealth accumulation, political disenfranchisement, and all of that ripples outwards. Imagine throwing a stone into the pond, right? And you see all the ripples from that stone. You see how that's what's happening within the communities. That's what you see happening each and every get incarcerated, that you see someone get back into this whole entire thing, where you see the families get fucked over and things like that, right? So when a person is incarcerated, income drops. Just to reiterate that. When a person is incarcerated, the income drops. When the income drops, the housing becomes unstable. When housing becomes unstable, stress begins to rise. Rises, conflict probability will definitely fucking increase. And the cycles are not mystical here. They are literal feedback loops. And feedback loops are engineered by conditions. More or less that this is where it's present without understanding the design here. Red line concentrated poverty geographically. This is something we all know. A lot of people don't want to admit to it, but this is sorry about that. I had a little drop there. So let me reiterate that. The historical continuum. I'm just pick back up where I left. Cannot understand the present without understanding the design, right? You have to realize that redlining concentrated poverty geographically. So that means highways were more or less excuse me, hold on. What the hell is going on here? All right. So that means redlining. Redlining concentrated poverty geographically. That means highways were routed to divide neighborhoods. Industrial jobs left the urban centers. Drug policies were enforced unevenly, which we've seen for literally the last 5 or 6 presidencies. Not only that, mandatory minimums expanded incarceration, and none of that reduced cultural deficiency by far. It required policy decisions. Now, my God, what is going on here with this? I'm gonna have to keep sliding back and forth here, so excuse me. So all this really just required policy decisions, right? So that means crime rates rise when environments with concentrated poverty, limited employment access, underfunded schools, housing instability, trauma exposure, everything I mentioned in my previous videos, right? This is not ideology. This isn't non-supported by decades of criminological research. It is supported by decades of criminological research. But design conversations threaten power. We all know this. The power arrangements, to be exact. So when you think about it, the design is avoided. Why it's avoided, excuse me, not devoided, but why it's avoided, it's because I'm guessing that there's an emotional shortcut there. You know, the phrase black on black crime, psychologically, it does the work. It really does. It simplifies the complexity behind it. And when you want to simplify complexity, that's where a lot of conundrums happen. That's where it happens as well. And not only that, it isolates responsibility and reduces the empathy that's needed. By far, it implies inevitability. When something feels inevitable, people disengage from it. And this is the rhetoric black on black crime. It makes it feel pointless. It truly does. And citizens feel, you don't believe me? And take a look at a city being overly policed. People love seeing that shit. Why? It reminds you of gladiator days almost. People love to see people get locked up and then put in these stadiums where they had to fight for their life. So this is an uncomfortable truth right here, what I'm getting to, because the narrative fights to survive. It does. If the public literally understood crime as a public health and economic design issue, the following questions would explode, right? Why are we funding incarceration at guaranteed levels while prevention programs fight for scraps? There's programs out here in Allentown, PA, that are literally at war trying to get funding just so they can prevent the crime that's going on within their cities. This is happening across the whole entire country. Next question is, why do police budgets expand automatically while schools negotiate survival? Again, this goes to me saying the school system here in Allentown, PA, absolutely sucks. Absolutely sucks. I said this to the mayor. I've said this to city council. This is back when, did I say? Yeah, I believe I said it to city council. I'm not too sure. But this is back when they had the emergency homeless meeting where I presented my proposal to actually combat homelessness and find an actual solution to beat homelessness. But the next question here, why is punishment politically safe but prevention politically risky? You know, those questions will actually reallocate the power. So the narrative must remain personalized, not structural. This is why the phrase black on black crime is so heavy, because the structural analysis of black on black crime, allocation of what can actually be combat things like this. Now, mind you, I live in a predominantly Hispanic community, but there are black people here. So that brings us to the topic of what real safety actually looks like, right? Because now when we think about that, we pivot to actual solutions, because analysis without direction is just intellectual sport. That's all it is, just intellectual sport. Um, if safety is the goal, evidence actually shows, that means evidence actually shows, excuse me here. Got a notification. What's this? Evidence actually shows, right? I know it was something. Stable housing reduces violence. Quality education reduces long-term criminal involvement. Access to mental health services lowers conflict escalation. Employment opportunities reduce recidivism rates. Recidivism rates is going back and going in and out of jail all the time, right? And this isn't no soft. This isn't bullshit. This isn't no fluff. This isn't any kind of fugazi bullshit. This is what you would call strategic. Now, prevention reduces the number of future victims here, but punishment responds after harm actually occurs. And a lot of people, again, they love that shit. They love that shit. Uh, One is really forward-looking risk reduction. The other is retrospective consequence, right? They serve different purposes, but the question which one will be the one that we will prioritize. So then you have, which none of this removes individual responsibility, right? None of this removes individual responsibility, because people choose actions. Actions have consequences. Harm must be addressed. It must be addressed. But responsibility does not cancel the context behind all this. We can hold individuals accountable and still act what conditions amplify destructive behavior. That dual lens is what I would like to consider maturity. Blame only thinking is easy. It really is. But structural thinking requires, and the phrase survives, it's useful. It's useful. That's why the phrase survives. Thank you for joining the live. If you want to catch the live, is rewindable, so you can just rewind it all the way back to the beginning and see where I'm see where what I was talking about earlier in the beginning of this live. So the phrase survives because it is useful. It protects budgets. It protects political positioning. It protects the illusion that enforcement equals safety. Let me repeat that for you. It protects the illusion that enforcement equals safety. Once you follow incentives, you stop arguing emotionally about analyzing structurally. And structural analysis changes the conversation. So if I were to close out parts 1 through 4 properly, it would sound like this: crime is real, harm is real, victims deserve justice. But simplistic racial labeling does not stop this, excuse me, it does not solve the violence whatsoever. It redirects attention away from the design. And design determines outcomes. When citizens understand that, allocation debates will shift. And in reality, that is why the rhetoric resists scrutiny. So the world is not simple. By now, we all know this, right? The world is not simple by a long shot. It's engineered. And if you want to change outcomes, you have to examine the inputs. It's kind of like what we say when it comes to dealing with artificial intelligence, large language models, and things like that, right? Examine the inputs. You input a shitty prompt, you're going to get an shitty response. So if you want to understand the narratives, follow the incentives. If you want to know who benefits, trace the budget. Seriously, trace the budget. Once you do that, the phrase loses its magic. And when the language loses its magic, power has to find a new hiding place. That's where the real work is going to begin. It really is. So while I'm here on live, I'm stay live. If you guys have any questions, you want to ask me anything whatsoever, the chat is open. Let's see here. I am going to go to my channel, and I am going to upload the videos that I was speaking on, chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 about black on black crime, right? So let's see here. So the first link here, this is going to be part 1. That is part 1. This is going to be part 2. Part 3 is, where's my part 3? Where's part 3? Well, I'm gonna find part 3, but for now, I'm gonna end up putting the other one in. This is part 4, so I'm gonna go a little out of order here. 1 second, y'all. Let me go answer this door. Uh-oh. One second. The benefits of working from home. But this is gonna be part 4. I will post part 3 soon. Where's part 3 at? If I didn't post part 3. But this is part 4, and you guys are actually